Regulation overview. This is lecture I03, regulation overview. It will introduce introduction to regulation types and scales of regulation, relevance to facade engineering, and some conclusions. Regulations are defined for buildings which are large and complex assemblies. They shape lives of their users and the general public. Obvious. They seek to improve the technical, aesthetical, and economic performance of the buildings and their interaction with the environment. We don't want that people die. We don't want that buildings do not function perfect. We do need to make sure that they're financially feasible and that they're energy-wise making sense. And that's why we need regulations. And these regulations are defined in scale of regulation, in regulations, rules, objectives made and maintained by authorities, by governments, larger authorities, and then standards, which are more made to measure and norm and say organize the quality, which is done in certificates, codes, labels. These are samples for standards, and they're either voluntary or they're established by governments or branch organizations as, say, a known standard for a structure. We do have regulations for industry, like industry quality standards. We have construction definitions like urban development plans, building codes, technical construction standards, and we have energy labeling, energy standards, which are getting important in our built environment. Industry, international industry standards like ISO, like ASTM, established technical requirements, specify them, give guidelines to secure qualities of materials, products, processes, services as set up. Industry quality and sustainability labeling. These are more regional and trade-oriented standards, which are developed by industry organizations, international labeling organizations. FCS are, for example, a well-known timber trademark standards, and for different materials, different services, and different product lines, these standards do exist. And then there comes the construction standards or the construction definitions, urban development plans, which are giving a general setup of a certain region, like the Dutch Bestemmingsplan or the German Bebauungsplan. They define what type of building is allowed to function. Which then brings us to the next level, more interesting for the facade engineering, obviously, the building codes, establishing design and engineering norms for different building typologies, as well as for the interface of other buildings and urban context. They focus on the aspect of health, safety, and usability. Health in the means of well-being at the inside, safety in the means of buildings not collapsing, things are not falling apart, and then usability. So the possibility to function. It may be healthy, it may be safe. Building doesn't collapse, but it may be vibrating too much, and then you're not able to use the building. Dutch Bijbesluit or the German Bauordnung are sets like this. And then there comes the technical details, construction standards, defining the methods for planning construction of building components. For example, how to calculate the amount of light or ventilation in rooms. And when you look at this drawing taken out of Tillmann Klein's PhD, you see all the different DIN norms in this German sample, DIN norms which give an idea of how to make what kind of construction part of this material. So it's either the glass which we see here, or the rubber, or the aluminium profile which we see here, which is defined by this. The national ones are, for example, the Dutch NEN norms or the German DIN norms, and this is now in the European Union transferred in the Eurocodes EC norms, which are supposed to take over the national regulations. But as you can imagine, this is a long process, which will take some time to be finalized. And then the energy field, European Energy Performance and Building Directive, the idea of the European Union to reduce its energy targets by 2020, 2030 and 2050. And obviously an ongoing discussion on this. This defines the global energy goals which we are supposed to reach, which then will be transferred in more national standards, which we see, for example, in this standard, the Energieeinsparverordnung, as one standard, which is now taken over by the next standard, which was to say set up for a certain time. Based on this European norms, the national regulations are shaped to reduce the energy impact, and then the national legislations are trying to fulfill the European results as a consequence. Then energy labeling is something which is interesting in this aspect. Different products are labeled by this A triple plus till G, which is very low. The building labeling is enforcing during a property transaction, rent or sale. So trying to make sure that this is used not only for, say, labeling a product, but also labeling the entire building. And then by legal forcing this, that people are using it, as we are aware of if you go in this kind of processes. And then there are independent rating agencies. That's an interesting one as well. The samples are LEED or BREEAM or DGNB, as the German set, and these are, say, voluntary activities. They're not legally enforced, so you either follow them or you don't, and by that you get certain certificates which define the energy quality or maybe the global building quality of your building by these rating agencies. So how does this influence the facade engineering with material properties, quality, structure, capacity, production technique, fabrication, maintenance schedules as industry-driven aspects in construction? The building materials, natural light, ventilation, thermal comfort. It also may determine setbacks, overhangs like balconies, canopy designs, accessibility of construction, planning, construction and detailing as process and global. Then obviously energy is an aspect, the U value, the G value, heat transfer, sun shading, ventilation, air tightness. Interesting point to be discussed, which we also saw in the building physics lectures, material and transportation, primary energy use, global warming potential, something which is also upcoming as an impact. In conclusion, regulation seeks to improve the quality and performance of buildings, the components they are made of, and the process through which they are built. It's regulating how we make facades. Official regulations and binding or non-binding standards are frequently cross-referenced to achieve higher detail or an added focus. This is happening, and all these regulations are constantly redeveloped with, say, larger or smaller committees, national or on a European level. And regulations are sensitive to time and location, and most frequently reviewed and ensure compliance. So we use regulations to also define what we do and to also identify if we are, say, following a certain set. If you don't follow regulations, then you have to prove by yourself that you at least reach the goals which you're interested in. It is possible to build beyond regulations, but for that, say, the processes needs to be defined, how you do that and how you get a certain quality control and insurance that technically this is feasible. I add this literature, Tillmann Klein's PhD's Integral Facade Construction, where we took most of the information off.